I'm Ricardo Roberts.
I am Jewelle Maynard-Roberts, and welcome to the Rescue Podcast, where we help real people cope with real life through candid conversation and helpful information. Now, back in February, we would have hosted Rescue Us, the Lifeline of Forgiveness, which was a 7-day marriage devotional series. And we just want you to know that that series is available now on www.therescuelifeline.com. There will be a link in the description. If you missed it, be sure and sign up for that devotional series.
Now, this month's topic helped me keep my parent in mind, raising the special needs child. Of course, some of you out there listening to this episode may know that our son, Nathaniel, was diagnosed with autism. And we have shared in parts some of our story. So in this episode, it's very, very close to home for us. In this episode, we talk about raising special needs children and its impact on the mental, emotional health, and well-being of parents. And of course, we want to know what are some of the challenges faced, the strategies to cope, advice to parents and to others who may be providing support to a parent with a special needs child. How has faith helped in handling the role of a parent to a child with special needs?
So today we have with us a very special guest. Her name is Miss Gillian Cadogan. Hi, Gillian.
Hi.
And Gillian is well known in the entertainment circuit of the 80s and 90s. She was a Teen Talent graduate and a former vocalist. She has toured Europe. She's toured the USA as a background vocalist.
Oh, wow.
And she's also worked as a judge in competitions. She's been a judge for the NCF, National Cultural Foundation, in Party Monarch, Junior Monarch, and Piccadilly Crop competitions as well. So she comes from a very artistic background. Mm-hmm. Her other side now involves the education of students with special needs. So she's a qualified teacher of 25 years. She has an honors degree in psychology, a diploma in education, a master's degree in education. And in addition to that, she is now assigned to the Eagle Hall Special Unit as the senior teacher in charge.
And also she has studied and worked for many years in the area of autism, and she is actively involved in the education of parents and in the training of teachers in this area. She has been a member of the Autism Association of Barbados for over 16 years and is the present vice president of the AAB. She is at present completing her principal's qualification with Eardiston Teachers Training College. Ms. Cadogan's greatest accomplishment yet, however, is her 2 children. Kofi, 20 years, and Christine, 13. Chris currently is in the 3rd form at the Alexandra School, and Kofi, who is diagnosed with autism, is in his 1st year at the Challinor School's Adult Training Facility.
Okay, so today, as we start our podcast, this episode, once again, the topic for those of you who are listening is Help Me Keep My Parents in Mind, Raising the Special Needs Child. And so we want to start off with a little bit of story time, and we want to share a funny story or a positive story about managing life as a parent to a child with special needs. I'll start the ball rolling. My positive story has to do with speech. My son, for a while, he was around about 4 years old at the time. He was struggling with speech. He speaks in terms of words, but from time to time, you wouldn't really hear him say anything in terms of a sentence, or he wouldn't have a conversation with you or anything like that. So one day, he was in my office. He climbed up in my chair and he said, "Mommy, I can sit in a chair." He said it very well, pronounced every single word, and he was sitting in the chair and looking at me. He knew and understood what he was saying, and I was just so excited. First of all, I was stunned. But then after being stunned, I was just so excited because it was like, That's a whole sentence. That's a whole sentence. And I don't know, for anybody who has raised a child with autism or a child who is partially verbal or nonverbal, just a sentence can be such a huge milestone. That was an enormous milestone for us. And that was really exciting to me. It sounds simple, I know, but that is my positive story that I wanted to share. Gillian, do you have anything you want to share with us on that?
Yeah. My son's life is full of positive stories. One that comes to mind is when he was at the Anthill School. He got into a little trouble with one of his teachers, you know, and he would normally get off the school bus and come down to Eagle Hall to my school, and he would have known when he got there that the teacher would have messaged ahead on WhatsApp. And when he came in, he walked into my classroom, he looked at me, he said, "Mommy, I'm in trouble." I said, "Yes, I know you're in trouble. I heard about it." And I said, "I am going to deal with it when we get home." He said, "Why do you have to deal with it? She can deal with it. She's a teacher." I said, "But I'm your mom, so I want to deal with it." And he said, "But remember, I have autism."
Oh, dear.
I said, okay. And for me, that was wonderful, because in Kofi growing up, I did not think that he may have gotten to the level where he understood what his disability was and that he was different, you know. And I said, "Well, you're smart enough to know that you have autism, then we're going to deal with the wrong and the right of what you should and shouldn't do." So,
yeah.
But, you know, I couldn't let him see how really proud of him
Even though
I was
naughty.
But, you know, even though he was, you know, as a teen, whatever it was, he was probably a little mouthing off. But I was glad that he recognized his difference. And for me, that really warmed my heart and gave me hope for him.
Wow.
And what's your positive story?
Well, this one actually blew my mind, because in the formative years, one of the challenges that you have to deal with is them, you know, using the bathroom, potty trained and so
definitely.
on. And I can't remember which morning it was, but I think I was still stirring to get up and get my day going. And the routine is with our son is that sometimes we will take him to the bathroom late at night, or even early on mornings. And there are times he just doesn't go himself. Yeah. But this particular morning, Nathaniel actually got up without any instruction given to him, and he went to the bathroom. He did what he had to do. I heard the flushing. I heard the tap running. Well, he spent some time in the tap, so I had to tell him, you know, take off the tap. And when he took off the tap, he came to the room, and he said, "Daddy, shake, 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 shake." Meaning, when I tell him, you know, after washing hands, to just shake the balance of the water off in the thing, and shake, 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 and he was good, and that made me feel really good, because it's something that has been challenging, but you actually seeing this happen was a milestone. It was something that really, really, it lifted up a burden off my shoulder, basically.
Yes, give you hope.
Oh yeah. So that was something that really, really did something for me that day.
Yeah. Okay, so we want to start talking a bit about this whole journey with raising children with special needs. And our first question to you, Gillian, has to do with your child's diagnosis and that experience of being diagnosed. For us, we know that in our experience, for me at least, it was a bit of a shock to me because my son had been born premature, and in my mind I was saying, okay, he has some delays, but that's because he was premature. He was born at 25 weeks, you know, that's a big timeline that he would have missed in terms of the amount of time out of the womb and so on. 3 months in the hospital. So I'm saying, okay, he has some delays, he's going to catch up. And that's all I'm saying all the time. He has some delays, he's going to catch up. And then one day, I took him to an appointment. I think he had an appointment with a therapist. And a parent in the waiting room asked me, oh, has your son been diagnosed yet? I was like, diagnosed? What are you talking about? And then they began to say, well, you know, my son, he has autism, and he used to do just the same thing that your son is doing. That's what he used to do. And, you know, and they're going, and I'm there like stunned, like completely stunned, because nowhere, anywhere was this ever mentioned to me. Not by friends, not by family, not by the doctor, nothing. It was just, and that was like, he was probably like 2-ish at the time. And I was there to myself saying, so nobody saw this and couldn't say something like, why is this now coming to me as a shock? And then I went to the doctor because I called her and I told her my concern, you know, some concerns were raised. He could be potentially autistic. And that is what started the whole process towards, you know, moving towards diagnosis and evaluation and all that kind of thing. So it was a bit of a shock for us on our side. Because in our mind, we were thinking, he has some delays. He's going to catch up. It's going to be okay. That was our experience. So what was your experience? How did you anticipate it? Was it a shock?
My experience. Yes, it was a shock in the beginning, but in some ways I was prepared. In other ways, I may not have been, because I was a special needs teacher for 4 years before Kofi was born. He was born fairly normally. Walked quickly. Was saying words. He was calling, because I was living with my parents at the time, and he would say granddad and mama and what's not, and run up and down. You know, beautiful child. You know, tall visage, and developed physically normally in every single way. Potty trained well at 2 years old. Everything. Didn't wet his bed since. You know, did everything right, and then I realized that he was getting quiet. I would say, Mom, Kofi talk for the day. I realized that words that he has started with just like disappeared.
Wow.
You know? So I decided to get his hearing tested, because I thought that he maybe he was deaf. And even as a special needs teacher already, the thought of autism never entered my mind.
Right.
Wow.
Because
that's crazy.
I had studied it. I had studied it before. And at that time, the statistics, it was something like 1 in every 500,000 children diagnosed or something like that. It was very, very small. Very small. It was a rare disorder at that time, like 20 years ago.
Right.
And I remember the audiologist saying, his hearing is fine. It's his processing.
Wow.
So I started, the water started to come out at the back of my eyes, because I know processing means the brain. And whatever is involved in the brain, it's not curable. It is something he will have to live with. So went to the psychologist, and at that time he also entered nursery for the first time. And God bless that nursery, because it was a new nursery at the time, and Kofi was he was the first child to enter the nursery. And other children came and whatnot. You could see the difference between him and the other kids. You know, they would sit and do the circle time, and Kofi would go to the window and stand and look out, and never paid anything that was going on, any attention. By then he was probably about 2.5, and he wasn't saying anything at all. And the psychologist gave the diagnosis. He got that diagnosis probably when he was like 3. But just before that, I had took him to a friend's house, and she said, "You sure Kofi autistic?" I was like, "No, of course not." You know? And I was studying at UWE at the time as well, doing my first degree. And I was doing a special needs course, UWA course. And the lecturer gave me a handout with signs of autism in toddlers. And we were discussing it in class.
Wow.
And as I was reading the handout, it was like looking at my son.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you, no, like, it could not continue with the class. I ran outside, sat on a bench, and cried for about an hour.
Wow.
And fortunately for me, that lecturer also had a son with autism. And I felt that I could speak with her, so I spoke to her. He got his diagnosis, and I was in the grief process, because we all go through the grief process. This was not what I wanted. This, why is this happening? This is not the son that I wanted. But then I came to realize, because I do have faith in God, and I said, you know what? This is the son that God gave you. And you're going to have to deal with it. So, you know, my brief moments of not facing reality disappeared, because basically that is my attitude. And I said, well, you know what? I am an academic, and I love to study. So I switched my major from English to psychology. And therein I started the investigation of autism. And he actually became the subject of my first degree thesis and my master thesis. So that was that was my way of dealing with it, to learn as much as I could, because I was a learner. You know? So yeah, the diagnosis was rough, it was hard. We didn't have any persons with special needs in our family, and being a special needs teacher did not make it any easier, because it's easy to deal with other children, but then when it is home,
your kid.
When it is there, it's a different story altogether. It was hard. It was devastating.
We can definitely identify it. I can definitely, when you talked about running outside and crying for hours, like, that's how that went down.
You know, after a while the tears dried, but there are times, even now, sometimes they would flow again, but I can say over the years it's been less. It's been less and less. So basically, that was the diagnosis.
What has been your greatest challenge over the years raising your son?
Well, I would say I can't pinpoint any one challenge, but I would say as he moved from stage to stage and matured, the challenges, different challenges resurfaced. Like when he was a toddler, the challenges were his communication, because he started out fairly nonverbal. He was echolalic. By now you might know what the echolalia is.
Yes, the repeating of words. For those listening.
For me, as a teacher, I always knew that echolalia was a good sign. Echolalia means that speech, normal back and forth communication will happen at some point in time. You know, so the communication, the not knowing what he wanted, and him not being able to understand me, and it was rough, you know, with my parents and whatnot, but my parents were very, you know, just for the love of their grandchild, they were like, you know, they understood him quite well, his behaviors, because my son was an escapist. So all doors and windows locked. And he's very, very, very smart. I used to have to sleep with the bedroom door locked, and I would wear my nightgown with a pocket and put the key inside. And he would, you know how a soldier would crawl down on the ground? He would get down off the bed in the night and crawl low so that I couldn't see him, and try to get out into the outer house. And if he found any outside keys, he would go out.
He would open the door.
He would open the door and leave the house. So,
but we relate.
He was always very smart and technical. You know, he would watch you doing something, and you could
guarantee
that he would get that password for the phone or the computer, or you know how to open the child lock in the car, and know how to undo the catch with the window, anything for freedom. Wow. So that safety was a challenge. And you know, he would pinch, he would bite, you know, in the effort to communicate. But those challenges lessened as become a teen. As a teen now, he's out there in the world. So encountering people in Bridgetown and at the mall and seeing his behaviors and getting people to understand my child is not bad behaved.
Yeah.
He has autism. That was a challenge for his teen years. And seeing the guys pass riding the bicycles and wanting to be
like
with others, but he had his own fears because he knew by then that he was different. So, you know, everything had to be supervised. All his social interactions and, you know, I had to be there to always tell people, well, if he does this, it's because of this. And having others accept him. So that was that challenge for the teen years. Now he's an adult. The challenge now is the future.
Yeah. What happens next?
What happens next?
Yeah.
Now that he's an adult and is in the adult world, how do I get him to feel safe, for others to feel safe around him, for others to understand and treat him with, you know, with the respect that he's deserving of, and for him to treat people
with respect.
As well. So every stage is a challenge. At this point in time, he's at Challoner, and we live very near the bus stop, so we walk down or drive down to the bus stop on mornings. And a challenge there is he doesn't want to be at the bus stop on his own. I would say, well, Kofi, you know, I want to leave the bus stop and go off to work. I can leave you here. You know the bus. You can get on the bus. No,
he doesn't want
mommy,
to do that.
stay with me. No, mommy. And people seeing, you know, this lady with this, because he's way taller than me,
Right.
with this tall adult, and she's standing at the bus stop with him one morning. I don't mind that, but, you know, to try to teach him not to have that fear and to be independent, because there are times you're going to have to be out in the world
on your own. Yeah.
You know, mommy's not going to be around all the time. So the challenge now is preparing him for a more independent life. Right? So that's that challenge.
We can definitely relate, especially that thing about escapism.
Oh, yes. So you know what?
Our son is always easing downstairs
Padlocks,
or slipping through a door.
Burglar bars. I had to put burglar bars on my bedroom windows because he escaped one morning through the bedroom window, and I had no idea he was gone.
Wow.
Because I was in a different part of the house, and a lady came
to tell you that
and she had coffee. She said,
I've had that experience.
He went across a major highway, Beckles Road.
You serious?
You know, he crossed the street like he was going onto the beach in his little pajamas, and me thinking he was asleep and being like in the kitchen area, out in the living area.
Wow.
I had no idea coffee was not in that bedroom.
My son didn't get that far. He got as far as our yard, our front yard. He was outside in the front yard playing.
Did that at least 4 different times in our lives. One day, I went to my mother's balcony because she has an upstairs balcony, and it was raining. And I saw like a little red shirt down the road. But it was what we call white rain.
Yeah.
Rain that is so heavy that you cannot make out the form of the person clearly. And I searched the house, no coffee, and I ran out in the rain. It was him
heading up the road in the rain?
Down the road in the rain, and I brought him in. So I had like 3 or 4. Had another instance where he left, went down the street, went around the corner, and got into the neighbor's car and sat down. But the neighbor, we and that's another thing, takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
Our immediate community knew him and loved coffee.
Yeah.
So it was like, he can't get outside without somebody bringing him back.
Yeah.
You know, and Uncle Hamilton, so listen, and I think he was naked too. Uncle Hamilton, and he got scratches on his body from sliding down the wall. You know?
Goodness.
Now, Kofi at 20 years old, God is great. I can leave and go anywhere.
And he'll be back
even at home. Because obviously, I am a man, mommy. I am not going out shopping with you and my sister. I'll stay home. So I feel good to be able to give him the option. You coming with us or not? I stay home. Okay, I said, but don't leave this house. I always give him that warning. I'm good. I'm good. Because he can cook. and do his own laundry. He doesn't like to iron much, but he is very independent and self-sufficient at home, like any ordinary 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, has his own devices, his own TV in his room and everything, and do his own stuff. So he said, I'll make breakfast and I will watch some TV till y'all get back or whatever. And this is a child whom I did not think would develop even to that level in language to have that conversation with me.
So even that is a miracle in itself. Yeah. So when I was preparing for this podcast, I came across this paper, and it talked about the challenges faced by parents of children with special needs. And it said that when you have a child with a special health need, there are certain stressors that you have. You will have more stress than the average parent raising a typically developing child, because when you're caring for this child, there are certain concerns that you have. There are elevated medical expenses. There's more time that is required. There's more physical care. You're worried about the future. You might have an escapist son like yours that you're worried about climbing through the window and that kind of thing. So the levels of stress are a bit greater. And as a result, there's a challenge in terms of a potential danger to your mental and your emotional health, even your physical health as a result of raising a child with special needs. One thing it mentioned as well was that the parent, if they're able to adapt over time, that will help to alleviate some of those stressors eventually. What was your experience? What was your experience in terms of your mental, your emotional health, being able to maintain that despite the additional stress of raising a child with special needs?
Well, in the beginning, like with most parents, I went through my grieving process. I was angry. There was depression. There was frustration. Sometimes I felt burnt out because I was studying at UE at the time as well. First, love. I love my son. I can't tell you how much I love my son. I love my daughter too, but the love is different for different reasons. Right. So that love will guide you first thing first to try to do your best. If you are a believer, I'm a firm believer in God. I'm a Christian, so I lay a lot of my fears and my stresses. I lay them down on my knees in prayer, you know. But a positive attitude. You have to have a positive attitude, and you also have to understand that if you're not healthy, you cannot do your best. So one of the things that I recommend for many parents, all parents if possible, is counseling. Whether it would be pastoral counseling, whether it is counseling with a professional psychologist, whether it is counseling from a family member whose opinion you value, who will give you good advice. But you need the support of other persons. If you exercise, do that. If you meditate, do that. If you pray, do that. Another thing you need is respite. You need a break. So if there is somebody who is very, very good with your child that you can leave them with for 2 hours for a Saturday, go somewhere and sit and mentally clear your head and think about things. You know, go out to a movie, go to, you know, it is important that you have, if you have hobbies, I think you said like you journal. And,
yes, I do.
And if you are an artist, if you go to the gym, whatever, you need time for yourself to recharge your batteries to be able to deal.
Yes, definitely. Another
thing is positive self-talk, because even for me, I find that the negatives always come in.
Right.
You know, I don't think I'm doing the right job. You know, am I a good parent? You know, am I doing the right thing? You need to talk to yourself in a positive. I am doing my best, and I am going to do my best again tomorrow. I am going to make sure that this does not beat my family. I am going to make sure that my child has, you know, so basically you have to be your own cheerleader. You got to cheerlead yourself to keep a good mental framework.
Definitely. And you find sometimes people aren't going to cheer you on. So
No,
you need
people,
to find...
people might not cheer you on, but
you have to learn to
it is
to
even
cheer
better
yourself
when you have
on.
family
Yeah.
members to cheer you on, because my mother and father were a fantastic support. My dad especially is well, that's who Kofi calls daddy. Again, this daddy situation. Kofi's father is fairly absent. That's neither here nor there. But my dad is he would take Kofi out for walks. He would, make his meals. He would, okay, Gillian, I gonna hold him down while you're studying. Come, Kofi, we're gonna do this. We're going to the beach. We're doing this. We're doing that. My mom, the support was tremendous from my relatives overseas, who would, send materials and send resources and be encouraging. You really need the support of other people, and part of my challenge would be those parents who are special needs as well. Yeah. Because always remember, autism is no special needs on the whole. It's no respect of persons. You can be a rich doctor and you will have a special needs child. You can be poor as a pauper and you will have a special needs child. Yep. You can be Muslim, Negro, white, Chinese.
It can happen to anybody.
Autism, Down syndrome, ADHD, cerebral palsy, everything that there is. It does not pick and choose where it will go on, which family it would go into. And you have to learn coping mechanisms. So some people drink, some people smoke. If there are any negative coping mechanisms, you have to get rid of those, because it's not going to help your child.
Because those, if you, as opposed to choosing a positive coping mechanism,
some people
if you go in a negative one, that then can destroys you as a person, first of all, and then can destroy your family. So
education.
Definitely.
Education. Go on YouTube. If you're not a reader, be a watcher. The videos on YouTube with special needs and autism, all you have to do is type in it and it's there. And many of those posts are very, very, very encouraging. They're not to our Barbadian context, but they're still helpful. You may find one or two in the Caribbean context, but, always be consistent as well. When you educate yourself, you feel more in control of the situation. Being consistent, be consistent in what you do. So if you know that you take a breather every week,
do that
every week. Yeah. If you know that you have something planned for your child every week, you do that. And a routine helps. It is always good to set a routine in place.
Yeah, and what you said there, before you go on quickly, what you said there about consistency, that is really, really important. And I found that has helped me significantly, especially where it comes to maintaining those like you said, that time for yourself.
Yes.
I've had to, like, what we do is, right now we take turns. Because of COVID, we're all home. So right now we take turns. So what we've done consistently, almost every day, unless something crops up to change our schedule, I have the mornings to myself, and he has afternoons to himself.
Wonderful.
So I have my mornings, and early in the morning I get up and I journal and I do my art and whatever, and then I start work, and then mid-afternoon we switch places, and he gets the afternoon and evening
that is important
to himself. So that consistency helps a lot. It really does.
It's wonderful to see how you are coping with it, because the one disability that destroys families and marriages is autism.
Really?
It is. It is researched. It is probably the most devastating disability to family crises.
Wow.
You have husbands that cannot cope and they leave. You have mothers that cannot cope and they leave. So if it is one thing that will destroy a family is the characteristics of autism, and where that child is, the more severe, the more pressure on the family. So that is where your coping mechanisms and your commitment and your love for each other and your love for the child and your determination to weather whatever storm it is. So if you're a person that was always weak, anyhow, when autism comes, I'm sorry.
You can't handle it.
You know, but, you know, if you can build strength, good. Because I'm not saying that persons wouldn't change, because I'm sure autism came into families and completely changed persons, people's outlook, and made them more committed, you know, and it can do the opposite. It can, people can run away, you know, people can try to escape the reality, but it is, you know, it is your plan, your family plan. A family plan must be in place, and that family plan must include mental rejuvenation for members of that family. And if there are persons outside of the family that can also give you time, the two of you together, that you trust that your son will be okay for a few hours, that is always helpful for him and helpful for you.
Yes, it definitely has been. And those points that you raised, they're really helpful. I'm just going to recap those points for persons who are listening, because I found them to be really significant in terms of taking care of our mental and emotional health as a parent of a special needs child. Gillian, she mentioned counseling.
Eat well. Physically.
And that's another one to add.
You have to be strong and healthy.
Yeah, she mentioned counseling. She mentioned positive self-talk. We talked about hobbies, prayer, meditation, family support, education, consistency in what you're doing. And you also mentioned exercise. I think you spoke about exercise as well. Some of those are the coping mechanisms that will help us to balance and manage as the parents of special needs children.
And let me say this too, with a sibling, you know, there are times where you can split up and do something separate. But you will do something with Nathaniel and give your daughter a break too, because she's going to need breaks from him as well. I often have to, I leave Kofi home, and Christiana and I are out with mother-daughter time. Because as you will realize, as your daughter gets older, if you don't handle it properly, she can get resentful and say, we've got to do everything that Nathaniel want to do. He is the center of this family, you know, so it ain't about me anymore. It is, you know, and so you have to make sure that you balance and give her the attention he needs, because he will easily take up all your thoughts, all your activities, and it is true. All plans will have to be centered around him, but you know, help her to understand that this is what family is about, and his needs are at this point in time a bit more they're heavier than yours, you know, and from now, if she understands that, it will be something that she's comfortable with, and she doesn't feel any kind of resentment, you know, about, I know, because
Did you experience any feelings of guilt over your son's diagnosis?
Of course. I'll tell you why. I was still quite deep in the entertainment circuit when I realized that I was pregnant with Kofi. And my band at the time had won Hotel Band of the Year. And we embarked on a board of tourism tour to 10 cities in the U.S. And me with my pregnant self, you know, I was excited and whatnot. Okay, I got leave from my work as a teacher. And because it was board of tourism, government, everything, I was able to accompany my band members on the tour. And I went on the tour. I was 5 months pregnant with Kofi when I went on tour. And I remember doing the first gig and becoming sick. I believe I got a cold. I don't know if it was the flu, whatever it was. But for that 2 or 3 weeks in the US, I was ill. I was throwing up. It was awful. My band members, great men that they were, you know, we would go from hotel to hotel on the tour bus, and they would just install me in my room, give me meals, make sure I was okay, go downstairs to play the gig, and come back to check on me, come back for me the next morning, pack me up,
Wow.
put me on the tour bus. So I was not able to participate in any of those performances. It was just awful. And I took some Tylenol, you know. Then after reading the bottle, I realized you shouldn't take this if you're pregnant or something like that. And, you know, and then the stress of the tour, and I was like, you know, after Kofi was diagnosed, I was like, it was me. If I did not get on that plane, this would not have happened. If I did not take that medication, this would not have happened. Whatever, you know. So this is my fault. This is my fault. And those were my thoughts for a long time. But you know what? God always has a plan. And I believe that Kofi was sent in my life to allow me to do things like the thing I am doing here with you. You know? And I don't know about anybody else, but being his parent has made me more tolerant. It has made me a better person overall. And I think it has made me a person that might possibly be fit for the kingdom of God. So I say all the time, you know, Kofi came to save my life. Because my life could have been senseless and useless. But I believe that God gave him to me for a reason. And this is to help other people through him, to teach. Because special needs, I could have left special needs education. But you know what? I didn't. Because every child that passes through me with any disability, I look on with love and concern, because when I see them, I see my son.
Yeah, because you've
And
had that experience.
sometimes I get a little too passionate, though. You know, and I am very, very close to my parents and my children. I love them immensely. And I am very loyal to special needs education. So it is... the guilt has gone away because I think that I have discovered what my purpose is. You know, but guilt, of course, it was there. It was there.
I can definitely relate to that issue of guilt. So, and interestingly enough, I also traveled while pregnant.
Yes.
and lo and behold, 2 weeks into our trip, which was supposed to be 3 weeks long, I went into preterm labor and delivered overseas, and had to spend 3 months in New York at my son's bedside in the hospital after delivery. So for me, then learning that he had this diagnosis, there was a huge amount of guilt, because I was saying to myself, but maybe I shouldn't have traveled, or you know, maybe it was my fault, or maybe I did something wrong. You know, I really thought that it was my fault. I really blamed myself for it. And that kind of guilt, that kind of, there's a level of grief that you have, like you said, from knowing that this is a child you have with autism. This isn't the child that you plan to have. There's that grief. But on top of that grief, I had another layer of grief, which was that layer of feeling like, it's my fault. This is, I did this.
Yes, it can take you into deep depression.
It was, it was rough. It was rough. And I could say that it took me a while before I got to the understanding. And it's when I had my second child now, Kaya, who was born just last year, that I came to the understanding that it wasn't really my fault, that my son's early delivery would have happened anyway, regardless of whether I had traveled or not. It would have happened, because that's just the body that I have and the body that I was given.
Correct.
So that helped me. Actually having a second child helped me to understand, okay, what happened to my son was not my fault. That there's nothing that I could have done about that. And that guilt is something that is really, really tough to move past.
It is debilitating if you do not work to overcome it.
Right. That's true.
You have to work to overcome it.
That is true.
Yeah.
All right. Raising children can be quite a juggle, and this is increased with a child with special needs. How did you balance the care of your child with work and other family obligations?
Okay, well, for me, for like Kofi's first, let's say 12 years, for Kofi's first 12 years, I'm not ashamed to say, leaned on my parents. I'm my mother's only child, so there wasn't any, there wasn't a huge wish for me to leave home. Anyhow, but I had that family support. Being a teacher also helped, because it would mean that on those holidays where people might be struggling to see, okay, what's going to happen to the kids, they're home on vacation and I'm at work, I was always able to be at home with Kofi and then with Christiane. But I'm a planner. I am a planner. I live by my diary. So my life is one big schedule. And basically that is how I cope. My days are planned down to detail. What I will do in the afternoon, what I will do in the mornings, every day. And they're planned by the hour. And, you know, I have my vehicle, so, you know, that made things a lot easier. But it was difficult at first when Christiane came along, because I was saying to myself, how am I going to manage 2 children? I do not know how I'm going to manage 2 children, but God is good, and Christiane has more or less, I would say, like a teacher-like personality. So she was always very take charge from a toddler. With her, when she recognized that her brother was different, you know, it was her duty then to teach him things and what's not. So, you know, family support though, just trying to juggle everything. You know, you need the family. You need the family. I do not envy persons who are living, single mothers, let's say, living alone with children with special needs and nobody around.
Yes, difficult.
Nobody around.
It would be very
to assist.
difficult. Yes.
It is difficult. You know, you got to get them to therapies. You have to go to the supermarket and do family business. I have known parents who would have had to leave children in vehicles because the supermarket was just too much. It's much too stimulating for them, and they would have tantrums and whatnot. I have had issues like that, but you definitely need the help of other people, you know. And I had that. I can thank God for that. That's how I was able to juggle the studies, and there were a lot of long hours. You know, at one point I was at UE like from 4 in the evening till like 9 in the night. So then when I got home, Kofi was in bed. I would rest for a few hours, get up to study till, you know, I would study till like 3 in the morning, have like an hour's sleep, and get ready to go back to work again the next day. You know, and my parents would take him to nursery, collect him, make sure he had everything he needed, prepared meals for me, for him. So more or less, I was fortunate. I was fortunate to have that.
Yeah.
You know, so you do need that help. A good nursery, you know, good neighbors, relatives who care. You know, that's important.
And what you said about scheduling, both the scheduling and the support, both of those things appeal to me, because in our case, for example, I found, especially at the beginning of the time when he started all the therapies, I know some people who may have atypical children may not quite identify with that experience of having to be at 4 or 5 appointments within the space of a week.
Yes.
And you have to juggle that with work, and if you have other children and other obligations, to if you are ministering in church or volunteering, whatever else you do,
calendars on the wall,
you have to juggle all of that. So it's like
reminders
the same thing that you're talking about with the
alarms
diary
going off. Oh yeah, I gotta do this.
Yes,
because you don't remember everything.
That
That's
right
true.
there,
That's
that
true.
diary that you open. I have it in my bag right now.
Yeah, my diary's there.
I actually sit down and I write out every single day. I write down, okay, what am I doing today? What do we need to do? Do we have any appointments? Do you have anywhere to go?
And you schedule time for rest.
Well,
sure.
I don't always get that in as good as I should, but I try my best to. That has really, that's the way that I have coped with, you know, all of the different demands
Yes,
of.
the demands are many.
Yeah, catering to a child with special needs being in the home. And then you mentioned support, which is really and truly very much a basis that helps you to be able to manage with everything that you're doing. Right now, he's hanging out by your aunt. So, so it's good to have, you know, that family support that helps to manage that very, very busy schedule. So my next question for you has to do with support systems from an institutional point of view now, in terms of government and the school system and that kind of thing. Yes. How does that help you to cope as a parent? And is there anything in place for us from an institutional point of view to do with our mental and emotional health? I kind of know the answer to your question already.
I have to watch what I said before I say it.
But suppose it, because you know there are people out there who they may be there first. They're now learning that their child has special needs, or you know they're new in the journey. They're still trying to understand what it's all about. So help us help them.
All right. The Ministry of Education has their department, the Student Services Department, and children with special needs aren't placed into special schools like the atypical children. You get a form, you fill it out, you take it into the principal, you get a call. You have to have your psychological reports. You have to have, you know, if you keep a journal, that is great. If you've been to the AC Graham Development Center and you get reports from there, letters from the doctor, you know, those are things that parents have to have on hand to help educators to help their children. We have come far. Barbados has come quite far in what they're doing for children with special needs. But we know that there is a farther way to go.
For sure.
And for me, as a parent, seeing my son grow up, I want them to move a little faster. You know, I think that more should be invested in education for young children with special needs, for juniors with special needs, for preteens, for young adults. We need that legislation change. That is so important. We have organizations like the Barbados Council for the Disabled. They're the umbrella organization for the Autism Association and like the Down Syndrome Association and all of these different associations we have in Barbados working for all the persons with special needs. We need more school provision. We need more spaces. We need more special needs facilities. We need better welfare systems because unfortunately, many of the parents of children with special needs are in the lower socioeconomic bracket. They're in that poverty line.
Can't afford therapy.
And listen to me, special needs is an expensive situation.
Very much so.
You know, you can easily spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And I think that is one of the problems. As a small developing country, we just do not have the economic resources to provide everything that is needed for special needs children and adults. But I believe we can do better, especially with the private sector. You know, we donations and fundraising and the government cannot do everything. There are things that they need to do. I will not talk about that now, but we cannot leave everything up to them. Parents must step up. The IDEA Act that I mentioned before, that is the Individual Disability Act in the U.S., that legislation was actually formulated and lobbied for and developed by parents, not by government. And the best ally and the strongest advocate for any special needs child is mom, dad, sister, grandmother, aunt. So I always say that when Barbados was going through the situation where we had the 8% cut, we got on the road and we protested and we made our voices heard. I want to see the day when special needs parents stand up in public and make their voices heard and say, we are taxpayers, we are voters, and we want that when our children reach 11 years old, that there are more options there for free education for them, and none of them are left behind, or we do not have to go to a private school and pay for education at 11 plus. My daughter sat the 11 plus, like your daughter will probably do the 11 plus, and be allocated to a school free of cost. At 11, your son does not have a lot of options. And our options are mainly private schools. So you have parents pulling their pockets to pay for education
that they cannot afford.
That they can't afford after 11, when the typical students have the option of being allocated to education freely. I want to see more secondary school spaces, more opportunities, educational opportunities for students with disabilities through 11 to 18. After 18, you can pay, because after 18, everybody pays. After 18, you got to pay SJPI, you got to pay community college, you got to pay wherever. I also want to see tertiary institutions opening special needs classes for teens who can cope in a tertiary environment, but with their own special courses at their universities all over the world, that adults can go to the university to do. And it is not that you're going to go to get a degree, because you might not be at that academic level, but it is your right to be educated amongst your peers at any age.
And I was also going to mention, when you were talking about education and being allocated to schools after 11, that many of our children with special needs are also highly gifted.
Yes.
But those gifts are not explored or even understood because there's no space for that within the educational environment. So that's something that
I'm going to tell you that we have the teachers. We have the teachers there who can unearth these gifts, but they need the training and they need the opportunities to
do so,
to be able to do that.
And related to this, I am also thinking that the institutional support that we need is not just from the point of view of the child and their placement in school, which is a big help, because it helps to alleviate, your financial pressures and some of your stress and your worrying about where my child can go and how you can manage and that kind of thing. But from the point of view of maintaining the mental and emotional health of the parent themselves,
well, that's another thing.
There's a need for institutional
welfare
support.
Welfare systems. And when I say welfare, I don't necessarily mean money, but home helpers and carers who are actually attached to families can also help with that mental health. Because if you have a carer who comes to your home 2 to 3 times a week and takes your son out to do activities, and you have counselors who can come into the home or who you can visit, and let's say I am Miss Brown's case, so Miss Brown checks in with me every month to see how I am coping, to see how Kofi is progressing, to find out if there are any needs that we may have, mentally, emotionally. Has he been tantruming? How have you been handling it? So I think
kind of like a guidance counselor state, kind of, but for adults.
Yes. What I call it is, I call it disability monitoring. I think that we need to have institutions, associations. It can even be done privately, where families are being monitored as cases, and this monitoring is to help you cope and in manage everyday life with raising. I think they do that in England. They have the funds. In England, you have persons coming to the home that is sent by government to make sure that you're all right. And if there are any mental health issues in the home, to get help for you. We don't have that. But Barbados, like I say, is not a rich country, but there's still more that we can do to make sure that the growth and development don't even let me say the children, the growth and development of families who have to look after special needs children is a concern, and it is important, and it is part of our functioning as a government and as a country. And now in the era of COVID-19, mental health is of high importance.
Even higher than before.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm actually glad that it has come up as something important, because to know that in this time it is now more okay to talk about your mental health than it has ever been before. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because 5 years ago, nobody would have been really as interested in your mental health. But now it is a topic of concern.
We have a serious stigma regarding mental health, and mental health issues is also a factor in special needs, because we have a lot of special needs children, and their special need crosses the border into mental health issues like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and whatnot. And
they too may struggle with sadness or depression,
because
as well. They're different from the society around them. So.
And exclusion
I feel
also
excluded and
affects mental health. So you will find that a family might have a child with autism and they don't get invited to parties. They don't get to socialize with others because my son behaves in this way and now the family don't want him around and whatnot. All of that impacts on mental health. So understanding and tolerance and acceptance and inclusion through others is important for the survival of families who have children with special needs to
definitely
to raise.
Interesting. Now, for a family member or friend who wishes to provide support but may not know exactly how they can help, what are some of the ways they can lend support?
One simple word: ask. Ask. How can I help you? And then that is where the conversation and the communication begins. I love to teach people about Kofi, what his needs are, what his personality is like, what he is on a good day, what he is on a bad day. All I want is somebody to tell me, explain to me, Gillian, and I am up on my soapbox. The parents are the experts on their children. So as long as you have family members who are willing, give them the information and tell them what help you would need. You know, you have a relative who's a teacher. She's retired. You know, can you take Nathaniel for about an hour and, you know, give him a little help with his reading? If you research autism, do you think that you would be able to give him some help during the holidays when he's out from school? You might have an uncle, you know, who's big and strong and burly, and Nathaniel likes him. Okay, I'm going to take Nathaniel with me playing football on afternoons. You know, and it doesn't have to be anything hard. Just giving some time to get to know your issues, to get to know your son's strengths, your son's weaknesses, and basically loving and caring and including.
In the case of the parent who may not be asking for help, in the position now of the person who is thinking about giving some support, either a family member or a friend, what are some of the things that they can look to see or notice that would indicate, okay, my sister or my friend over here who has her child with special needs, she might need some help right now.
Okay.
What are some of the red flags or warning signs?
It's the icebreaker. It is how you approach that person. You might know for a fact that they're having difficulties in a particular area. You know, you might just approach them and say, I've noticed that, you know, it's been very tough for you lately. Would you like me to assist you by, you know, and it is very hard sometimes for people not to think that you have a motive or you're not genuine. You know, it is your approach. It is your approach. And you know, it is hoped that when you approach persons to give them help, that they recognize that you are being genuine. You know, just be observant. Just be observant, and where you see a need could be met. Where you observe a need could be met. You know, if in helping to hold down the child, if they need probably you to run an errand, would you like me to you know, I am going down to the supermarket.
Is there anything
would you like me
need?
to get
Yeah.
something for you? I'm going to pay my bills. I noticed that you might be having a little trouble. You know, you see them on the road. Would you like a ride? You know, in COVID now it's a bit
difficult.
It's a bit harder.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
But wherever you see the need might not be directly related to the child or to the autism, but with other things. You know, you're going to the laundromat. Would you like me to take your laundry for you? You want me to help you? You know, they have a garden. You want me to come and dig 2 rows? You know, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Every little bit will help.
But any little bit. They have another child. You might be having difficulty. Plaiting your daughter's hair, I could do that for you. You know? Anything that might ease the burden.
Yeah. And sometimes I think too, coming from a parent of a child with special needs, it doesn't even need to be something that they necessarily need. It can just be something that shows you care and you're interested. You know, like, just the smallest little thing, I think, will go a long way towards helping that parent not to feel so alone in the process of raising their child, and to feel that somebody out there gets, okay, this is something that you're doing that is a bit difficult, but I am here to support.
And what you just said is important. All you might need to say is, I want you to know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
If you need some help, give me a call. Give a telephone number. And that's it. And leave it there. You know, and at some point in time, you will probably get a call, and that is when the door is open. Because as helpers, we can't always open the door ourselves. They have to open the door and let us in. Yeah.
Very true.
As a single parent, speak to other single mothers who are raising children with special needs. What advice would you give to them, you know, on coping, basically?
On coping, well, I would say listen to the advice of other parents. Talk to your sons or your daughter's teachers. You know, make sure if there are other people around who are willing to help, accept that help, because you can't do it on your own. And put everything in God's hands. Prayer, you know, educate yourself about whatever the disability is. Get information. The more you know about it, the more in control, you know, you feel. If you're living on your own, make safety and security paramount. You know, make sure you're careful. Windows, doors locked, whatever. You know, if you have a next door neighbor that is, you know, that's a good friend, you know, make sure your neighbors know, well, my son or daughter is different, so
keep an eye out.
If you can keep an eye out around, that would be great. And spend time with your children. Spend time, you know, helping them, talking to them. I remember Kofi was not much of a talker. Sometimes I would be talking, I would be like talking to that wall, but I still talk.
Right.
And one day he replied, like a year later. So being consistent in whatever you're doing to help your child, make sure and keep your appointments. You know, if you have an employer, make sure your employer knows what your situation is. Hopefully they will have compassion and give you leeway to make your appointments, because a single mother with a child with a special needs is, as you know, a busy mother. You will have a lot of things to do. So co-workers, you know, in everything, a community is important. In everything, a community. And you can't hide it. In everything, let the people around know what is going on.
What you're going through.
So that when there is time that you have to nip out, co-workers don't feel as though you're shirking your job and gave me all the workload. You know, make sure people who are around you that you can trust know what the situation is and build up that little support. If you don't belong to a church, join one. Because a church community is also a helping community.
Right.
You know?
That's some great advice. And before we wrap up our conversation, the last question I have for you has to do with the highlights and the lessons of your experience. Can you share with us some of the highlights? Overall, you're 21, your son is now 21 years old. You're 21 years of raising a child with autism. Can you tell us about the highlights of that experience and the valuable lessons that you have learned along the way?
The valuable lessons. Okay, I'm going to tell you probably one of the most wonderful things, one of the biggest highlights for me with my son. There are actually three. Kofi's a swimmer, and most children with autism have some type of talent. And Kofi's talent is athletics. He's very athletic. And Kofi got the opportunity to, I always knew he was a good swimmer. You know, swimming was part of his program at Erdison Special School. So he went to the pool every week. And I would hear people talking about how good Kofi can swim and whatnot, but at first I didn't pay it a lot of attention. You know, and then his swim coach came and said to me, you know, Kofi is one of my top swimmers. We're having the opportunity to go to Los Angeles in 2015 for the Special Olympics World Games. Now, the Special Olympics World Games is of the same magnitude as the ordinary Olympics.
Wow.
And I said, what? Okay, all right. At first, my mom said, like, no, Kofi can. Anyway, but he did get the opportunity to go to LA, and he won a gold medal in the 15-meter freestyle. I have all the videos, but you know, with Barbados, it wasn't publicized as it should. It's not too late. But, you know, to see my son receive his gold medal and to see him signing autographs and to see...
Wow, we have an Olympian.
You know, yes, he is an Olympian. And
that's awesome.
That was also for me letting go. Because he had to go to LA with the team. My daughter and I went as well, but he went down like 2 or 3 days before us, and this was the first time Kofi and I had been apart ever. Wow. And he was getting on a plane. You know, I handling my own passport, had his own stuff and everything, and I was in tears, and I was scared.
Just thinking about that, like.
But that is one of the lessons, letting go.
That. Yeah.
When your son or daughter becomes an adult, there's the process of letting go.
Yeah.
And that is a valuable lesson. And you don't let go unless you teach them how to stand on their own 2 feet.
Correct.
So I want parents with children with special needs to teach them life skills from the very beginning. You don't start to teach life skills from 14. You start to teach life skills from 2 years old. And your son learned a valuable life skill in going to the bathroom on his own, because it's going to prepare him for school. Nobody's going to take him really to the bathroom at school. He has to learn that skill. And I remember Kofi being at nursery and sitting in the chair watching the TV, and I would go to the little half gate and I would say, Kofi, time to go. And he wouldn't look in my direction. And the other children, the other typically developing children around would say, Kofi, you want to see your mother there? And 2 people would grab him and take him to the gate. And then 2 more children, I got his shoes. And then another child, I got his bag. And they would rush Kofi to the gate. After a few months, I would say, Kofi, mommy's here. And he would look around at me, get up, get his shoes, get his bag, and run to the gate on his own. So they develop and they learn. Teach them. Have teachable moments with your children as much as possible, because the school can't do it all. That child with that disability is going to learn at least 70% of everything it will be able to use in life at home.
Wow.
At home.
Wow.
School is, academics, they learn a lot at school, but the home is extremely important. So if you have a little corner in your house where you can put a desk and a chair, let him sit there to do something that is useful a little bit every day. A little bit every day. So life skills are very, very, very important.
Okay, this has been a fantastic conversation. We thank you, Gillian, for coming. This has been really helpful for us, we know.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
As parents ourselves of a child with special needs, we know the struggle is real for special needs parents out there. We know that struggle. So we are hoping that this episode will help somebody, that it will help someone else who may be struggling, someone else who is challenged, who has had a recent diagnosis and they're wondering, oh my goodness, how am I going to cope? How am I going to make it? I hope that this gives a little hope and gives a little light to somebody somewhere. Thank you so much, Gillian, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really,
it was
really,
a pleasure.
really appreciate it.
Yes.
It was a pleasure being able to help.
Yes, please. Thank
We
you so
really
much.
appreciate it. Well, guys, for those of you who are listening, this has been the Rescue Podcast, where we help real people cope with real life. And just as a reminder, don't forget that the Rescue Us, the 7-day marriage devotional series, which was produced and presented back in February, along with the free PDF workbook that is available on www.therescuelifeline.com. There is a link in the description, just in case you missed that. So I want to say bye. This is Jewelle Maynard-Roberts.
And I'm Ricardo Roberts.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.